You should be careful with how much you are upset about me saying that when I have screenshots of what you've said about Alyssa and David. Vile. It was vile. You said...
I know last week I said that I think Gia was bullied so much at school that she's become a bully, but in how she does it is she hides behind other people. I don't think so this week. I think she's the master manipulator. I think she's mastered the art of getting other people to do your dirty work while she sits in the background. The fact that Juliet cannot say it, that every time she's being used as the front to sort of say whatever Gia wants to say, and then Gia just sits there and folds her arms and pretends like she can't see what's happening, or she's not involved, or she's not the architect of it, is really shocking for me. And I don't get how Beck was able to get away with what she did. And the idea that Rachel is saying, oh, the only reason why I was upset with Beck is because of what, Juliet and Gia said to me. Gia is not an angel. She's not a saint. Neither is Juliet. But the audacity to throw them under the bus and say the person that offended you, you weren't offended by them, but you were only offended because somebody else exaggerated what was said. Make it make sense. Really, make it make sense. I don't get it and I don't understand it. And I love that finally Stella and Philip have decided to sort of lift their hands up and say, this is what is going on in our marriage, and actually receive constructive feedback, which I hope they'll use in their marriage to help strengthen it and grow it, because I can see a future with them. Alicia and David are just there and they're just catching strays. And it's like, when will someone stop this? Because it's unacceptable for it to continue to take place whereby things are said behind their backs, and then when people are confronted, they pretend like they have no idea. I know someone in the comments said, race is not an issue in Australia. It's not that walks like a duck, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, must be a duck. Because why else was it blurred out? What else about those two people would people be talking about outside of that? Anyway, me digress. Hey there, thanks for stopping by to Girl Valerie. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, turn on the notification bell for when I upload new videos, and definitely leave a comment. In this episode, I'll be reviewing Married at First Sight Australia, Season 13, Episode 25. Okay, so we start off with the couples. They are in their apartments. Obviously, it's the day of the commitment ceremony, so we all know it's going to be messy. We have Rachel and Stephen. They seem to be doing very well. They seem to have overcome the obstacles of the, couples retreat. I think there's more to that couple. It's really sad for me that Rachel is sort of taking any crumbs that come her way. So whatever Stephen does, if he kisses her on the cheek, she claps her hands instead of asking him, why didn't you kiss me on the lips? So I don't get whether this is the sort of relationship she's used to, or whether she just wants a marriage, so she's going to accept any little crumb that's sort of set her way. You have Beck and Danny. They say they're in this good space. Obviously, they had the obstacles that happened at the couples retreat. Beck is excited that Danny was able to stand up for her and sort of be her support system. Do I buy what's going on there? No, I don't. I think they've decided to ride it till the very end, especially given what happened at the commitment ceremony. I think Danny is checked out, but he's going to stay on the show just because he wants the clout that comes with being on TV. Sam and Chris. I saw cracks there. I saw cracks. Because the problem with Sam and Chris is friends with Juliet and Gia, whereas Sam is friends with Beck. And so they will never see, because you had Chris saying, I'm excited that Juliet was able to speak up for herself. Sam is, on the other hand, is saying, oh, but I don't agree with what she said. And it's like, you're both sort of arguing for people that are not the best. Both sets of girls have issues in them. And so the idea that the two of you are willingly supporting either one of them doesn't make sense to me. You had Juliet having a conversation with Joel, and she was saying, I am upset because, Gia didn't support me. She left me there. She left me out to dry. And I came up with a plan, and then she left me just to fend for myself instead of being my support system. I think she's partly upset that her guy didn't, support her as well. Joel at least could have spoken up for her when he saw everybody else backing their partners. Whether or not he agreed with her, it's something that he could have discussed with her in private. Gia, on her part, is in her apartment. She says she sent the screenshots to Juliet because at the end of the day, she feels Juliet needs to understand that she's not the only one who's used inappropriate language, and the fact that Beck has actually used way worse. I think she did this on her part, Gia, because she was trying to sort of throw Beck under the bus and hide her hands and not get in trouble, because there's no reason why she should have done that. If she had an issue with it, she could have brought it to the group instead of sort of sending it to Juliet, knowing that Juliet has a problem with Beck, unless she's trying to recruit Juliet to be one of her minions opinions. Anyway, everybody gets ready. They all go to the commitment ceremony. The experts are there. They're excited to see everyone. So they call the first couple up, which is Gia and Scott. Gia and Scott said, well, on his part, Scott says the couple's retreat was amazing because they were able to strengthen their connection as a couple. Gia then said, no, it was a lot. It was a lot. And it's like, it's a lot because you're in the center of the storm. You are the one that's sort of navigating whatever's happening and then hiding your hands and pretending like you didn't throw the first rock. You throw the first rock, hide your hands, and then everybody else starts fighting. So the idea that you're making it seem like everyone is always sort of interfering with your couple, I do not get it. Gia said, Danny yelled at her, and because Danny and Scott were asked, did you have a friendship before? They both said yes, but what's happened to the friendship? You had Danny say, well, Scott, as a gentleman, he should have stood up when my wife and I walked in. And it's like, are you the royal family? What country are you the leader of? Why should people be standing up for you? What makes you so special that you feel like everybody owes you the right to stand up? I didn't like that. I'm surprised the experts didn't sort of rule that standing up at the commitment ceremony. So apparently this friendship has fallen apart just because Danny yelled at Gia. Gia said, he called me a liar. Danny on his part refused. He said, no, I didn't do that. And so it's like they will never understand each other. They will never reach an agreement on what actually happened. So there's no need for us to continue to discuss a friendship that is not going anywhere. Gia and Scott were asked, are you making any plans for the future? Scott said, he'll need to look for a bigger apartment. So they've been looking at that. Gia said she's looking at rentals and the cost of moving and stuff. And so I don't see them as a couple that will last long term. I think they might do it for the clout, especially Gia on her part, but I don't see this marriage lasting. Anyway, the two of them chose to stay. Surprised? No. Next up, we had Danny and Beck. This was Oaks galore. You had Beck say she made a distasteful joke, which she didn't say with malice, and sadly, the girls made her life miserable because they dragged her for filth because of that, regardless of the fact that there was no malice behind her joke. And it's like, there was malice. There was malice because you wouldn't have belittled it and made it sort of derogatory the way you described it. So the idea that you're trying to pretend to be the victim, I don't get it. She said, I was isolated, I was crying, she took time to reflect, and then this strengthened her relationship because her husband was very supportive, and in the end, he took her away from it. He didn't take her away from it, production paid for it. That's it. That's what I'm going to say. Because you're saying I should actually thank the girls because in them sort of isolating me, this is what has made my relationship stronger. Do I see it? No. Then you had sort of Beck be asked, so what's going on with your marriage? And she said, well, I can see this man in my life for the rest of my life. Danny was asked, he sort of eventually I think she tried to corner him by saying, I love him. And he didn't say the same, which kudos to him if he doesn't love her. I don't think he actually has any feelings. I think he's settled and he's decided he's going to ride this thing down the river as long as he can. As long as it still stays afloat, he's going to ride it, because at the end of the day, there was no need for her to say, I love him or I love you, because everyone would have expected a response. For Danny to be asked by the experts and still continue to give fake responses tells me this man is just in it, just for the sake of it, and is waiting for the day he can say, no, I don't proceed with this marriage, because otherwise, why else would you not come out and say either way, yes, I love you, or no, my feelings are not yet there? I don't get it. They both chose to stay. Surprised? No. Rachel and Stephen were next. They were happy. They said, we've been intimate. They did speak about the couples retreat and how difficult that was. They were asked about intimacy. You had Stephen say, well, because of everything that happened at the couples retreat, Rachel was so upset. This is why we didn't get a chance to do anything else. Rachel was asked, why were you very upset? She said it's because of the girls and what they said to her. They tried to turn her against Beck because they told us they exaggerated whatever happened. And it's like, hopefully when she watches Beck saying she wants to make t-shirts, merch, and sell merch, she'll understand that the girls, even if they exaggerated, but the majority of what they said, at least 60% was the truth. At least 60%. Yes, they might have added another 40%, but at least more than half of what they said was true. So the idea that she has decided to blame the girls instead of blaming Beck, the one who said it, I don't get it. They seem to be in this very happy space. They are working on their intimacy. They're going to continue to work on that. I think this man suffers from lack of experience. That's what I'm going to say. I think he suffers from a lack of experience, and this is why you have Stephen struggling to be intimate with his wife, he is very awkward. It's not that he's shy, it's just that he lacks the experience. That's the impression that I get. They both chose to stay. Surprised? No. Sam and Chris were next. They said they've been intimate. Apparently, they expected to be intimate at the retreat, but things didn't work out because of all the tension and the chaos that was there. They came back, and it seems like there was this seductive event that took place. They were asked about their future plans, and you had Chris say, he plans on staying at the farm most of his time, while Sam will be in the city, because I assume because of his gym and stuff. So it makes sense. Chris has got a child coming. He might want to be raising the child, so he might not want to bring up the child in the city. So I get where they're coming from, but I still have a lot of reservations when it comes to the two of them, especially the situation around the kid. They both chose to stay. Surprised? No. Alicia and David were next up. I love Alicia and David in the sense that they are always catching strays from everyone, but they are united as a couple. Alicia said she's tried to do things to sort of shake him off, but he's not being shaken. And the problem is he is a calming force. He is steady in what he says, what he does, what he believes in, or in the relationship. Whereas she is used to being in these rocky, toxic relationships that she's tried to be messy and whatever to cause chaos. And he is still unmoved. And so she's realizing that this might be what she needs, because she was thinking that, oh, I don't have anything to challenge me. And maybe the reason why she's not challenged, or she feels like she's not challenged, is because he's so steady that she can't quite sort of understand him and understand why he's that steady. The two of them chose to stay. I was pleasantly, I wasn't shocked. I was going to say pleasantly surprised. No, I wasn't shocked, because they really seem to be doing very well. I think David is very good for Alicia. Even he said, I'm very good for her. I think he's good in the sense that he balances her out and he stops her sort of wavering tendencies. Then we had Stella and Philip. Stella and Philip, I think this was the best couch session they've had, because they've been very sort of smooth sailing. So the idea that they've actually unpacked a lot of things and been given tools to sort of deal with that was very important. You had this sensitive issue that they had to discuss, because I think they were being pushed for a long time for Philip to say, I love you. And then once he said, I love you, then it became, now that he said, I love you, what's next? What is next? It seems they were talking about their living situation. Stella wants him to move. And he is saying, it seems like this relationship is sort of dictatorship, whereby she tells me, I want this one or whatever. And I can't go through a relationship like that. Apparently, she questioned his masculinity. And it's like, I don't get why she would do that. She's got an amazing guy who shows care, love, compassion, empathy. So what else does she want? Him moving doesn't make sense. Sadly, I don't know much about Australia. I know I still intend to visit Australia, so maybe I'll understand when I get there. Because the distance thing, they need to reach a compromise at the end of the day. Need to reach a compromise. Everybody has their life that they're living wherever they are. And so they need to reach a compromise of either they move to somebody's town or they move halfway in between the two. I don't know whether that's feasible or possible, but this is something they need to work on. I was actually pleasantly surprised, because at one point I was worried that she was going to say she wants to leave. I think because of her abandonment issues with Stella, she wants somewhere where she's stable. That way, if he comes to her, if he has to leave, then he leaves her. She doesn't leave him. Or I don't quite understand what exactly is her goal or her motive. Whether she doesn't want to be left out in the cold if things don't work out in a place she's not familiar with. This is why she wants him to come to her. I don't quite get it. Anyway, the two of them chose to stay. Surprised? No, not really surprised. We finished off with Juliet and Joel. Juliet and Joel was a train wreck. It really was a train wreck. They were doing very well as a couple. They really were doing very well as a couple. And so the experts then decided to corner Juliet and sort of hold her to account for the comments that she made about, Beck. And Juliet was given messages. And you could see that on her part, Gia was waiting for these messages to be revealed, because you then had, Juliet say, this is the plan we reached, whereby we agreed that if Beck says anything, we would use the messages that she sent. Gia was asked. Gia said, well, I just gave her the messages because I felt it was important for her to understand. And it's like, it's very childish. It's very high schoolish. What I love the most is, I know it's heartbreaking and devastating for Alicia and David, but at least now they know the person that they're dealing with. The very first time Becca came after Alicia should have been enough for them to understand who she is. And I love that Alicia was quick to call out Becca to say, how dare you say things like that? What have we done to you? Really, the only thing they've done is exist. The fact that they exist in the skin that they're in is the big issue, I think. I know everybody says no, but to me, that's the big issue, because what else is it about them? It's not that they're unhealthy. It's not that they're not good looking. It's not that they're not financially buoyant. That's the only thing that I could think of that could be the reason why. And I don't understand why it was blurred out. Was it that bad? I was side-eyeing Gia because this is the second time she has sort of left Juliet frailing in the wind, and it's like this is what she does. I thought Brooke was the worst of the two. I'm actually starting to believe that Gia is the architect of everything that is bad that has happened between the girls, in the sense that she starts a fire and then she hides her hands and says, I don't even know how to start a fire. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense that all this was said, all this was done, only for her to sit there and not say anything. So you ended up having Juliet storm out because she felt embarrassed because the experts kept sort of hammering on her. Joel, on his part, had been asked, how do you feel your wife is saying you didn't support her? And he said, well, I thought they were very fair in how they sort of approached her. And it's like, no, that's not it. That is not it. At the end of the day, this is my opinion. Joel should have supported his wife and then corrected her in private. I know he didn't want to face her wrath, but he should have done that. Because for him to then run after Juliet when she left the room and sort of say to her, come back, we need to sit down, we need to talk, it's too late for you to say that. When the experts were sort of asking or dissecting whatever happened, you should have stuck up for your wife. You didn't stick up for her. So there's no need for you to try and be the loving and caring husband. The fact that Juliet's left, am I surprised? No. That's good for her. If she feels it's time for her to go, good for her. She can go home and hopefully find her peace, and maybe it will provide healing for her, because it seems she's got a lot of issues. Gia, I think, became embarrassed because everybody was now side-eyeing her, and so she stormed out. She went to the toilet and never came back. On his part, poor Chris had to run and look for her. He couldn't find her, and then Joel came back and the expert said, we want to appreciate you. I think, regardless of everything else that has happened with Joel, yes, he's a quirky guy, yes, he has some tendencies that make you side-eye him, but at the end of the day, he has always been respectful towards his wife. He's always been empathetic towards his wife. You can't knock him for that. So it's really sad that he was matched with someone who he didn't sort of align with him, and hopefully he finds this person. This commitment ceremony, I think, was good. It was good. I'm sad that Gia wasn't held to account. The fact that she was allowed to order for an Uber and leave and not be held to account doesn't make sense to me. The fact that we have Juliet gone, Juliet needed to go. The moment she started sort of dragging her husband is the minute she needed to go. Beck and Danny need to go. They really need to go. If they say yes on final vows, I'm going to scream my head off. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Click on the link in my video to watch my review from episode 24. Bye guys.